Yeah.
Whoops. All right, I got one more here. Let me just, whoops.
The NFL Draft is coming to Detroit, and you can be there for free. Experience the ultimate NFL fan fest. Go to NFL.com/draft access. The NFL Draft, presented by Bud Light, April 25th through the 27th.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your gardening supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, you know, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasurer.waynecounty.com and see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasurer.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, and we are international today. Well, some of us are. Some of us are quite domestic. Going around the horn, we are joined by pollster Ed Sarpolus, labor and community activist Barb Ingalls, attorneys Joel Sklar and Steve Fishman, and of course the other member of that exalted troika is from broadcasting from Spain, and that is Bill Seikaly. Hola, Bill. or should I say Guillermo? Muy bien, muy bien. Veteran journalist Nancy Derringer is actually traveling in Italy right now. So we have two people on the continent. And we have, of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel, joining us. So right off the bat, we have the Requiem for Orenthal James Simpson. That's right, O.J. Simpson passed away yesterday at the age of 76 of prostate cancer, surrounded by friends and family, and dying at peace with the knowledge that now he knows that his ex-wife's killer is dead. So I actually was just reading that there was an NDA that had to be signed by friends, family, and medical staffers at his deathbed. So more intrigue to this. So we all remember, I'm pretty sure, what we were doing 30 years ago when there was the infamous Bronco chase scene in the slow roll, and the following year when, of course, the verdict came down in the double homicide trial of Nicole Brown Simpson, his ex-wife, and unfortunately a person in the wrong place at the wrong time, Ron Goldman, a waiter at Mezzaluna restaurant where Nicole Brown Simpson had been dining earlier. Thoughts on this?
Should we play the video first, or
yes,
should we
let's play this. Let's play the video.
Video.
And the Pope came out with a book this week, which contains a series of essays examining faith and morality in today's secular world and the changing role of the Catholic Church as it approaches the 21st century. The book is entitled, "God Himself Told Me That O.J. is Guilty." In other book news, Prince Charles released an autobiography in which he states that he never loved Princess Di and that his father pressured him to marry her. The book is entitled, "Of Course O.J. Did It." I mean, come on. In his book, O.J. Simpson says that he would have taken a bullet or stood in front of a train for Nicole. Man, I'm going to tell you, that is some bad luck when the one guy who would have died for you kills you. That's probably...
So all of that actually got Norm Macdonald fired from SNL because OJ called his really good friend, Vice President of West Coast Operations, Don Ohlmeyer, who then leaned on Lorne Michaels and the rest of the NBC crew on the East Side, and Norm wouldn't relent, and so he lost his job.
Norm also, in that little shtick there, I cut it out. He said, you can buy a statue of OJ and you can pay extra for Don Ohlmeyer kissing its ass.
And that's probably what did it.
No, I mean, OJ was, I remember seeing him in, I think in 83 at the Silverdome, and he had the best, he had 265 yards or 263 yards rushing, and he was absolutely, it was incredible. And he was a football hero. He was an American success story. You know, he did everything. He was OJ.
Joel, was that when he was at the Niners? Had he left the Bills by then? Was he at the Niners?
No, he was Buffalo.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Maybe
so
it's 70. He had he had to be a little bit after 73, but he had a great line. It was a Thanksgiving game. It was incredible. But the story of his life, that arc, that going from O.J. Simpson, a god, to O.J. Simpson, a murderer, which he'll be remembered for, it's like such an American crazy story. A guy rises from nothing to something, a heistman, marries a beautiful woman and kills her. It's just fucking crazy. And then spends his lifetime denying it. Everybody knows he's guilty.
He got to play golf too.
Every day, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I mean, if anything, I think one of the things we're also reminded of the division, the racial division, and how I was at the Anchor Bar watching it at lunch break, and all the white people were like, "What?" when they announced the acquittal. It was stunning, and you saw black people celebrating, and it was kind of an eye-opener, I think.
I was at Mount Rushmore when the verdict came out, and everybody was like by their phone, not their phones back then, but their radios in the car, and they were listening. And when the verdict came out, I think all 4 presidents also gasped. There was,
I was a very young lawyer at the time. Maybe I wasn't all that young of a lawyer, but I was a relatively young lawyer. I was enthralled, watched most of the trial. And I will tell you, I was not surprised by the verdict. But the reason I wasn't surprised by the verdict was I didn't think that I thought the prosecutors lost the verdict. I mean, Mark Fuhrman, people forget this story. He may have been the worst witness I've ever seen on a witness stand anytime, anywhere. He had all kinds of baggage. The bloody glove, that was a stupid thing to do. I just think that, his defense team did a very good job. And the prosecutors who had all the evidence in the world, I thought botched the trial. To put Fuhrman on as the main witness, huge mistake in my mind. I was not shocked when the verdict came out.
Well, as a matter of fact, you talk about when I was doing polling for the Free Press during that whole travel thing, the black community, we came across the fact it's the first time a black man has money to actually take on the white community. He had lawyers and staff. I mean, that was really the move. There was a lot of black people said they didn't say he was not guilty. They were just trying to beating the system. Finally, he had his equal time, equal money, and his employees. Because when you talk to them, that was more of their impression going on than necessarily he was not guilty.
Yeah.
Barb?
Yeah. I'm glad he's dead. I'd like to point out that every month in the United States, an average of 70 women are shot and killed by their intimate partner. It's called femicide. It happens all the time. It's happening right now as we speak. Somebody is getting beaten, or someone is being shot or stabbed by their partner. And sometimes it's also men, but it tends to be women. And I'd like to say that there is a national hotline. If they're going after you, you can go to thehotline.org, all lowercase, which is the best way to do it. There's phone numbers, there's text numbers, but Nicole, he nearly cut her head off.
Yes.
We know so much more about concussion. We know more about what happens to people's brains on steroids, that we didn't know then. I mean, so I suppose, it's all too bad, but I just think we're a better planet without O.J. Simpson on it. Every time they showed him, we're still talking about him, and Nicole is dead, and Ron Goldman is dead. And good.
Fishman.
Well, thank you. Thank you for providing that hotline. Fish.
Well, I'm astounded that this is getting the attention that it's getting. He was a great football player. He was a killer.
Mhm.
And I really don't see any reason for there to be any more conversation about it. I'm in the gym this morning, and on MSNBC and CNN and ESPN, all they're talking about is O.J. Simpson. And for the life of me, I don't understand it. I wasn't the least bit surprised at the verdict for the reasons that we've all talked about. And I agree with what Eric Brown just posted up there. He's absolutely right. O.J., if anything, I think what happened was people forgot where he came from. He came from a tough neighborhood in San Francisco. He was a kind of a tough kid. He got in a lot of trouble. He just happened to be a great football player. And then the white people adopted him when he became a Hertz spokesperson. And nobody knew anything about O.J. Simpson or his background. And then when the people were killed, and I happened to have had a Passover Seder with Ron Goldman and his dad over at a friend of mine's house when Ron Goldman was a small kid. They were regular people. He was the wrong place at the wrong time. But I just think that the society in general, white society, likes to try to take a black guy and turn him into a white guy. And that's what they were doing with Simpson. And they just ignored his background. And if you read his biography stuff, the guy was in trouble a lot. It's just he was a great football player. And that's what turned him. Instead of maybe going to jail when he was young, he wound up winning the Heisman Trophy and gaining 2,000 yards. And, and now he's gone. And I kind of agree with Barb. Good. It's over, done with. It's enough already.
Just one point to a message that just came through, Terry. OJ's news actually broke yesterday, and we had actually already got the panel together before that, so we weren't in a position to go ahead and bring anybody else in. So,
and
Allan?
clarification, I did ask one black panelist to come on, and he wasn't able to come on, and then and like you say, it happened at the last minute. So
it was literally.
I thought about it. I did think about it this morning about that.
So a couple things. I mean, not regarding his football record and not regarding the actual murders, but what about the fact about a brand and brand protection? I was reading an article that was by, at the time, a young 20-something administrative assistant to the president of USC. And hey, Nancy's dialing in. OJ Made in America, multi-part documentary now on Hulu. Very, very good. Yes, the 5-part documentary that was done by Marion Wright Edelman's son is brilliant. Required watching. But this administrative assistant said that she, in 1995, found Howard Shapiro and what's his name, Kardashian. Rob Kardashian came to meet with the president of USC. She let them in, half-hour meeting, and then when they left, the president of USC made her sign an NDA to even then deny, if anyone asked, that they had stopped by. And part of it, she says, is that there were allegations back in the 60s that OJ had abused 2 blonde girlfriends while he was at SC. And so this sort of idea of cover-up and covering loose tracks, keeping it even from the prosecution, which I'm sure would have been inflammatory had they been brought up, was there. So just this whole idea about covering up a brand and a commodity. The other question, though, I would like to ask all of you is, there was a cynicism and a disillusionment about the verdict for not a small part of American society back in '95. Do you think that really started the ball rolling to where we are now, when you have someone like Trump spewing contempt and trying to show that the rule of law really doesn't matter? Yeah, Barb.
No, I mean, you can look at the Central Park 5, and that would have been a lot earlier when the news was skewed, to make that point. I don't know. I think this was the biggest case. He was the most famous person, and somebody that didn't know just couldn't believe that somebody as friendly and smiley and as O.J. Simpson would do such a thing.
Well, the other thing I think, other than the Iraq War, this was the big kick for cable TV.
Right.
It was
reality TV. It was the first time.
The other thing, to go back to the Trump fact, what was the biggest debate after the Civil War? Was he entitled to keep his retirement? Remember, that whole day was like going on. Does he keep? He doesn't get to use this. He keeps keep retirement. It's like, why are we talking about his retirement? He killed somebody. It's like So you're talking about the Trump effect. There it is. The guy gets to keep all his retirement.
Look, as somebody who really does believe in the judicial system, and I do, I'm committed to it. I think that one of the things that Barb said that I thought absolutely accurate. Here was a black man who had the money to fight, like Trump, and he got a great team in. I think that team beat the prosecution. Prosecution, I think, did a brilliant job with what they had. But, I don't think it began any decline. I think it tells you that the system can work if you have the resources to fight it. Unfortunately, a lot of innocent people get convicted because they don't have the resources to fight a prosecution like this, which is a shame.
But let me just, this is
what happens when you have an equal or a level playing field. I mean, it is not so easy to convict if the playing field is truly level.
Well, but this is like an idiosyncratic case to an extent. It was so much celebrity. You had Judge Ito, who was courting celebrities in chambers. Everybody was playing for the camera, and it was great fucking TV. I remember coming home early from work just to see some of the cross. I thought Barry Scheck was brilliant. I thought he was a just wonderful lawyer. And so this was, for many Americans, their first exposure to a criminal trial going on in real life. And I'm not sure what the impression is that they got. Again, it was a circus to an extent. There was Melrose, Larry Green with holding signs out. Melrose.
Remember the dancing Itos on show?
It had a life of its own, but it was interesting. It was reality TV in every way. And it was real, and it was compelling TV.
Actually, Joel, to borrow from another vestige of all of this, it was real and it was spectacular. Jackie Child.
And I make an argument that all good criminal trials can be a circus. The line, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Right.
Great line. I remember this guy in Detroit standing up and saying, after Jerry Spence gave this great opening, he stood up and he said, yeah, I'm from Detroit. I'm from Wyoming, too. 7 Mile in Wyoming. Maybe you know that place. And he owned the jury, okay? He owned the jury right after he said that. And those are the kinds of things that make a criminal trial a great criminal trial. So, I do think that that's what happens when there's a level playing field. And in, the guy who said, I'm from Wyoming too, 7 Mile in Wyoming, he was defending a guy with some money. And guess what? He got an acquittal too. Now, I think in that case, he deserved the acquittal. But
it was Wyoming and Curtis, by the way, but that's okay.
Wyoming and Curtis, I'm sorry.
Half a mile from 7 Mile. It's in between 6 and 7, so that's okay.
I'm not sure.
I thought it was a great line, Fishman. I thought it was one of the best lines ever at a courtroom.
I'm not sure it was a level playing field, to be honest. I think that OJ tilted the playing field way in his advantage. He was going up against, prosecutors in cities like that are just pushing cases through. They're overwhelmed by cases. And they had, he had Johnny Cochran and,
F. Bailey.
Bailey. It was, I thought, tilted toward OJ at that point. And,
and it gave us the Kardashian family. Thanks a lot, OJ.
So fear not, everybody. And Bill, I know you're kind of feeling a bit of phantom limb from that trial because you really enjoyed it. So starting Monday, there will be jury selection for yet another criminal trial. That, of course, being of Donald Trump in the so-called hush money or the document records fraud case, as his former fixer and attorney Michael Cohen calls it. I think we have a video for this too, Al.
Took a break from trying to derail his porn star hush money trial to make a surprise stop at a Chick-fil-A in Atlanta. He likes to go into fast food restaurants and buy everyone food like a big shot. He bought 30 milkshakes and some chicken and then started passing it around. And one young woman in attendance at the Chick-fil-A became an immediate fan.
So I don't care what the media tells you, Mr. Trump, we support you.
We love you.
Okay, 4PF. We've been 4PF.
Come here, let me give you a hug.
Please
Thank you, sweetheart. That's really nice. No, we did. We took care of the black colleges, universities. They're taken care of now, and she understands it. A lot of people don't understand it. Biden did nothing for them, and I did.
Isn't that how the hush money trial started, with a hug with Stormy Daniels? I mean, you know, this is kind of a. All right. So
that woman's going to come to regret that clip. But
yeah,
oh, I know.
Hey, for a milkshake, I would. But so what do you think? I mean, there's still a few hours left, and I suppose that Trump could still try to gum up the machinery. What do you think's going on? Do you think that jury selection will go through Monday and the trial will indeed start?
I got to believe it will. There's been, it's going. As far as we know, on Monday, there'll be jury selection, and Trump will be in a chair. It will be in a confined setting that has rules and structure, and we'll see how that little baby responds to those boundaries. Like, which he can't do. He'll lose his mind. But it's going.
Which he's been doing on Truth Social. I mean, I think he broke the caps lock button.
He's doing everything he can to have the judge say, "I can't do this." You know, this is, he's attacking the judge with just vitriol, but that's not, this judge is.
Good luck. This is a tactic. I've had one client in my career who ever did this. I told him that it wouldn't work. It didn't. This technique does not work with a good judge. It just doesn't. This judge is going to try this case. And, I think the real question here is whether the prosecutors are up to it, but I don't know this team at all. And we'll see.
And who's representing Trump?
I think the difference between what we were just talking about with O.J. Simpson and with Trump is Trump has not gathered a great group of lawyers to represent him. Just, this has been if you'll excuse the expression, a shit show,
right,
in terms of the litigators. And so I just don't think this technique's going to work very well, especially in a criminal setting, especially in Manhattan.
Actually, Bill, I think that would be a teatro de caca where you are.
Caca, isn't that Arabic, Saeed?
No, khara. Khara is Arabic for shed.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as long as you're representing Spain for us today.
Okay.
What do you think, though? I mean, given the fact that it really only takes one juror to go ahead and bring about a mistrial, are the odds still in favor of Trump sliding through this? Or do you think that maybe the evidence itself, as it comes out, will, at least in the court of public opinion, then have the kind of damage that that someone might hope?
Fish.
Yeah, Fish.
Yeah, my computer keeps knocking me off. That's why I don't know what you guys have said beforehand, but as you know, I've been a big fan of let's get a trial going. I don't know. You can never predict anything about hung juries. You can have a case where you think you have 12 regular people, and you can get somebody who says when they walk in the back, "I'm not talking about anything. This is my position. I'm done." So we can't make that kind of prediction. But you want the facts to be out there. It's too bad it's not on TV, because it's a state court case. I'd have liked to have seen it be on television so everybody could see, particularly the females who are kind of thinking maybe this guy is such a big fucking asshole, I can't vote for him. They ought to hear from Stormy Daniels and hopefully Karen McDougal, and then they'll for sure know he's a big fucking asshole that they can't vote for.
But Steve, this is a state court case.
Yeah, so it should be televised.
Case, but this judge, they haven't had anything televised, and the trial will not be televised. Each judge can make that decision. Now, in Michigan, the media will go to the Court of Appeals and try to get him to force it. So most of the time, the judges allow it. But I just think that he's going to have to be there. If he acts like an asshole, like he did in the other civil case, he's going to offend these jurors. And unless somebody sneaks on there that's a MAGA Trump crazy, and they can't figure it out through the voir dire, hopefully they can. Some people try like hell to lie, but we usually smoke them out anyway. I think the way he'll behave during the trial will piss people off, piss jurors off. And I think as the evidence comes in, the question for me is whether they can connect it there's 2 or 3 different predicates before you can get to the actual crime. Maybe that's going to confuse people, but he's not going to get acquitted. I can tell you that. There ain't going to be 12 people who are going to vote for not guilty with this guy. And
So one of our viewers just wanted us to change our format to match game. Blank him in Times Square. So go ahead and fill
Michael, that would be fine with me. And whatever 4-letter word you want to put in front of him is fine with me.
Joel.
Yeah, I would like to see the reaction to his secretary at the White House was watching him sign those checks at his desk. That's the one that really is going to be the impact. That's going to be the impact.
In the Michigan state courts, we have videotape. They video recordings. I wonder if the Manhattan court will use videotapes to record what is happening inside the courtroom. We do that here. I assume they do it there. It's not very difficult to do. And I wonder if those videotapes will be released to the public. If those videotapes will capture voice, if those will be released, because we can get them here.
Well, and Joel, this week we had, of course, in real time and live coverage of the Crumbley parents being sentenced, James and Jennifer Crumbley being sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. And that was something that was covered. Not only actually on local channels, but even on Court TV and others. It was even being streamed. So, thoughts about the sentencing? Surprised, not surprised? What about the demeanor of the parents in the courtroom? And also, I'd really like to know what you thought about the defense attorneys, especially during the objection phase.
Fishman.
If you're saying the objection, I don't watch TV, as you know. I've not seen any of it. What did I think about the case? Was it a surprise that they got 10 to 15? It was no more of a surprise than the sun rising in the east. This judge ruled for the prosecutor on every single case, every single issue in both of the cases. She's obviously motivated more by what's people going to say about her than she is about trying to do what's right. And the truth of the matter is that everybody knew what was going to happen. I've said before, I agree with Karen McDonald bringing the case. I'm hopeful it'll save a few hundred lives.
Okay, do we got fish freeze? I think we got a bit of a fish freeze.
We've got a fish freeze.
I think the failure of either of the Crumleys to take responsibility, which is really what they did. They didn't take responsibility. They blamed everybody but themselves. Is again still tone deaf. It warrants the judge to be remarkably pissed by their failure to take any accountability for their son, their only child. So I was, again, like Fish, I wasn't surprised at all. And they're just not likable. There's nothing about them that is appealing in any way.
You wouldn't even look at each other in the court.
Yeah,
I think the attorneys failed them in this case. Failed to properly, prepare them.
Absolutely.
Adequately.
I thought Jennifer Crumbley's lawyer looked like she spent more time on her ensemble before she got to court than really doing a good job articulating the objections that she raised. It was, I watched it in the morning, and they were just so fatuous. I have to commend the judge for not biting straight through her tongue. While she patiently listened to each one and responded really respectfully instead of chastising the lawyer.
Yeah, I want to follow up on where I think Steve was going, because I agree with him. I do think, I don't think this is going to get overturned, because I think that the same reason that the trial judge ruled for the prosecution every step of the way is going to impact on the Court of Appeals. I don't think any judge who is going to stand for re-election is likely to vote to overturn this.
Absolutely.
I do think there was reversible error that occurred. And I think that the shame of it all was this. I think that if you would have played it straight, they would have been convicted anyway. I think they were guilty of involuntary manslaughter. You didn't need to let the videos of the shooting in. You didn't. There were all kinds of things that came into evidence that really didn't make much difference.
Isn't this much similar to the case in the 90s when Engler was governor about the black couple and the black kid in Macomb County? Wasn't there a similar case where the parents were basically held responsible for their child?
Not an involuntary manslaughter.
No, I know, but I thought there was another case where their parents were basically impacted. Hey, it's your kid.
And they've tried this a number of times. And listen, I remember back in the 70s, there was a parental responsibility law that was passed. It was ultimately struck down. But look, I think that the elements of involuntary manslaughter were there. They could have tried this case straight. The judge did not need to let this evidence in that probably does create reversible error. But I'm now interested in what Steve has to say about it. But I don't think that a Court of Appeals judge who's likely to have to sit for re-election is going to vote to reverse.
Precisely. The issue is really going to boil down to, if this were a case of Jones and Jones and a case that nobody knew anything about, that judge would get reversed for 4 different reasons at least. But to find 3 people, particularly Judge Gleischer's retired, Judge Shapiro's retired. There's 2 people who were great judges who also had Batesum, which means balls, even though Lisa probably wouldn't like me saying she has balls. But in any event, it'll be interesting to see who the panel is, because it's the same pressure will be on them that was on the trial judge. And, unfortunately, in this day and age, we've talked about it before. I tried a lot of cases in the media, but they weren't like this, where you've got everybody poking their nose in and everybody's giving their opinion. The pressure on the jurors and the pressure on the elected judges, it's just immense. And it's a completely different set of circumstances than all those cases that I dealt with 15, 20, 30 years ago, before all this social media crap.
So I have a question sort of on a legal side. I mean, here Ethan was charged as an adult, and then they charged his parents for being bad parents. Is that something that can be brought on appeal, to say that if you're going to go ahead and charge the kid as an adult, then the whole parent-child dynamic doesn't really apply?
No, I can't think of a way that would be an argument that would be accepted in court. The fact is, the kid was 15. I mean, he was 15, and that's what age he was. What age he turned into be.
And remember, there were a lot of elements here that just fit with involuntary manslaughter. Right. They bought the gun for him as a present, saying it wasn't for him. They just did a lot of things that I think put them in jeopardy. Them in jeopardy. If you would have played this absolutely straight and just tried it without all the other stuff coming in.
Well, Bill, what do you think? The 10 to 15 is that the right sentence?
It was the sentence they were going to get. It is bigger than most sentences for somebody who's drunk, drives a car, kills somebody.
Okay.
It's just a kind of classic involuntary manslaughter.
Right.
Alan, why do we break for commercial?
All righty.
The NFL Draft is coming to Detroit, and you can be there for free. Experience the ultimate NFL fan fest. Go to NFL.com/draft access. The NFL Draft, presented by Bud Light, April 25th through the 27th.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your gardening supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasure.waynecounty.com to see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasure.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
So this week, the Arizona Supreme Court has seen fit to uphold as enforceable an 1864 law that was a total ban on abortion. I won't call it a state law because the law was enacted about 90 years before Arizona even achieved U.S. statehood. It seems as though it is now opening up a Pandora's box on the subject of abortion, and particularly given the fact that Dobbs has sent this matter to the states. Now we find that even some Republicans, including Kari Lake, running for Senate, is trying to distance herself from what she thinks is going too far, and matching almost word for word Donald Trump himself, who's gone rather ambiguous on abortion, saying that, well, this is a matter for the states and that the governor and others will sort it out and bring reason to it. I'm pretty sure he never watched Schoolhouse Rock and understood how these things work. First of all, what do you think about the Arizona Supreme Court's decision? And then how do you think this is going to affect things in November?
All I know is that I was watching on TikTok to see what they were doing, and there was a group of representatives were speaking in tongues on the floor. I mean, it was insane. So that's what I think of the decision. If these are the people who are bringing legislation supported are speaking in fucking tongues on the floor of a public, house, that's insane. I think this is a political decision. I mean, this goes back to something that was said before that, I don't know how Arizona does it, but here we elect our judges and we don't know who the fuck we're electing. And, I don't know the names on those election sheets. So the quality of justice varies. If you're electing people that you don't know, and maybe in Arizona they have an electoral process, you're going to get shitty results because you may have a really bad bench. And what they did here is just, I think, a terrible bench, conservative. They had a bent and they went, and then it was a fait accompli.
Ed,
well, I'll answer the question.
Talk about abortion. Talk about that. Talk about abortion playing a role.
Well, actually, you have to deal with women's rights things because I think you have to be careful about. I mean, obviously, for the pro-choice group, it's all about abortion, but for the vote that he's going for in the conservative state, it's about women's rights. Okay, and he stuck to that, and you can tell how important this was. Kamala Harris is there today, heavy speech. They bought $3 million worth of ads. It's about Trump did this. They're already seeing the numbers moving on this, and Trump's trying to run away from it. And so the fact that it has a positive impact, it gives them another state now that the Republicans now have to defend. You've got Florida working. So politically, you can't have anything better because now the story is all about Trump again. And Biden can say he did it. It's not Biden didn't do this, it's he did it. And I think you're going to see this the rest of the campaign. Trump did that, Trump did that, Trump did that. So I think politically it was a very positive thing to happen this week.
And there's ads to that effect. I think the Biden campaign said, look, I mean, on abortion, he's lying now that he says that he's actually saying that this is too extreme. And by the way, Nancy chimed in, and although she's not a doctor, she did diagnose that the GOP is suffering from incontinence about this by wetting their pants. So, Barb, what do you think about this? I mean, both from the standpoint of the reach of the Arizona Supreme Court, and then also the politics of this going into the election.
Well, it's been as talking to other women and talking to active women and women all over the country and talking to women in Europe. It just becomes so outrageous. We live in a country where a 10-year-old can't vote, can't get a credit card, can't, drive a car, but they can be a mother. And accusations of women going to 9 months and then aborting their babies, and they're not babies. It's if you want to piss off all the women in the country, keep at it, because it's going to get worse, and I don't like it, but I do like it, because if this is what defeats them, excuse me, their hatred of women is palpable. And again, we're back to the whole conversation of today. There is so much anger right now amongst women in this world, and women in this country. So keep it up, assholes.
And they got one more vote.
I'm Jane. Nancy is Jane. We're going to do what we have to do to keep this from killing any more women.
And then you've got the Supreme Court ruling on the drug issue on abortions by the end of June. So basically, you're going to have the peak hit right before the convention, the court's decision on the drugs.
And they're paying attention, because none of it is about.
I think it's fascinating. I think it puts both Arizona and Florida into play in this election, which I would have never predicted a few weeks ago.
Well, at least not Florida.
Well, so for my fraternity of lawyers here, and for those of you who, like myself, read Supreme Court decisions, when's the last time you read a really prosaically beautiful Supreme Court decision. I mean, gone are the days of Cardozo.
United States Supreme Court decision?
Yes, U.S. Supreme Court decisions. Yeah, it's been a while since I've read anything prosaic. I remember just reading like the old ones and the people like Cardozo and Learned Hand in the New York Appeals Court. Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that they're not using emojis. Because I think that could certainly come up. But this idea that there's an internal struggle regarding the GOP, I mean, I think as you mentioned that right now there is a vote coming up in the Arizona legislature, and the Speaker of the House there doesn't even want to bring it up for a vote. So this is causing the Democrats and some Republicans who I think are worried about the optics and the politics moving forward that this is a disaster. But this is also happening in the U.S. Congress. We have our old friend from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is threatening an outright revolt.
Yes, I feel you're revolting. It's true.
Looking to go after House Speaker Mike Johnson for betrayal, even then blocking the renewal of a critical FISA provision, which then, of course, affects national security. So where's this going?
Well, we'll know pretty soon because he's the speaker is down in MAGA land to support Trump on this whole issue of what to do about all the other votes coming up in Ukraine. And so right now, Johnson is basically concerned that he might be kicked out. So go visit the boss to see what to do. And then on the other side, you're going to have Johnson come back. The fact now he's negotiating with Biden, he wants to reduce the environmental issues before he'll get a vote on Ukraine.
Fish.
And go ahead.
Well, no, I just think that when I saw that he was going down there to see his king, that to me is just the example of just how low everything has sunk. The fact that anybody would ever have to go trot down there, it started with McCarthy, right? When the guy was on the...
Man, another fish freeze.
Yeah.
So Bill, I mean, being out there in Spain, what's the mood regarding America's positionality on Ukraine compared to a lot of the rest of the European Union?
Well, it's fascinating. They're terrified, and one of the things I spoke with them about, because I noticed that Cameron, the foreign minister, British foreign minister, visited with Trump, which is a fairly unusual thing to have happen. They had a very interesting view of that. First of all, they thought this was Cameron trying to save his own political hide. But more importantly, they say that there is nothing more important to the EU and to England or Great Britain than trying to get the United States back on track in terms of Ukraine, because they see Putin winning and that's bad for everybody in the West. Yep. And that they would do anything. They'll go meet with Trump. There's some speculation about whether or not they cleared it with Biden before they went, but that they think that the UK and the EU are desperate to try and get America back on track and would do anything in terms of internal politics to deal with that issue. They also think that Cameron, is trying to clean up his image from the Brexit disaster, which is an interesting perspective I would have never considered.
Well, the other
thing, I mean, he was the one who brought forth the vote on Brexit, and that was a disaster. Yep.
The other thing you've got going, the fact is there's a big concern right now, especially in the Baltic states, the fact that if we're out of it and Ukraine loses, the NATO is going to have to come together by themselves to find money and material to take on Putin.
That's right.
That's going to include North Korea and Iran and China backing them up, because it becomes now an international war, not just a one country war.
And if Trump got reelected, God knows what that would mean.
We don't know what side we'd be on.
That's right.
Yeah, Putin's side.
Which is a terrifying. I mean, the fact that doesn't even seem to be an issue in our politics right now is terrifying to me.
Well, at least we wouldn't have to worry about Trump meeting Putin in Munich, because there wouldn't be a Munich left. I think at that point. So I think that's something.
But I mean, you just don't hear people talking about this issue in domestic politics. It's like, well, okay, but that's foreign affairs.
JD Vance.
Bill, when I talk to younger people, they have no history, no social science, they have no government affairs things. They don't have any of that knowledge that you and I had in high school or college or grade school. There is none of that going on. I talk to kids every day when I go to schools to help out. There is nothing the kids know about history or government or anything.
That's right.
And all the World War II guys are dying off or dead. You know, all of our fathers knew firsthand about fascism in Europe and in the East. JD Vance today did a editorial in the New York Times about Ukraine and how bad. You know, we have to let them sink or swim by themselves. And again, and you're right, no context.
It's crazy. It's
so what I'm hearing here, Joel, and the rest of you is I think we need to moonlight after the show is done and create a series of TikTok videos in order to educate the younger generation on some of these things. I mean, I'm not even being facetious. That's where they're getting their news. That's where they're getting their information. And the fact that they are either uninformed, ill-informed, or misinformed is critical fish.
I think that I've said this for years about just the Jewish community. The further you get away from the history, as generations pass, you know, like we were all saying, my father was a naval officer in the war. A lot of people's dads were in a war. They lived through the Depression. We know about a Depression because our parents told us about what it was like to have nothing. And unfortunately, with the elimination of the military draft, it made it much easier for citizens to ignore what's going on, what you guys are calling foreign policy. What do we call it? It's history is what it is.
Yes.
And as soon as they eliminated the draft in 1974 or 5, it became simpler for people the Iraq War, for instance, that never could have happened. If there had been a draft, you wouldn't have got 10% of the public to support it. And so what happens is, because the youth are not talked to about the stuff and because they don't experience it themselves, they're not in the situation I was in when I was graduating the University of Michigan and couldn't make any plan at all till December the 1st of 1969 when we had the first draft lottery. I couldn't think about anything else I was going to do till I knew if I was going to be in Vietnam with my other guard from Mumford who wound up getting killed there in a year. I mean, it's easier for young people to ignore stuff and watch whatever this tactic or whatever this other stuff they watch. It's easier for them to do that because they don't have any stake in the outcome. And I think that's what's
and Steve, not only everything he said was profound, but he just demonstrated that our ignorance about what the youth are doing is almost as great as their ignorance about what history.
Well, another example of that is when I watching Molab, the son of the Hamas founder at U of M, when he was giving his speech and the kids and he was being interviewed on CTN, and the guy says, "You don't know nothing about my world, what Hamas is with Palestinians." Then these people says, "No, that didn't happen." He says, "You don't have any history." I mean, they you know, these are U of M graduates. You know, bottom line, Hamas son leaders sitting there telling them about the history, and these kids wearing all these clothes. No, that's not the facts. That's not the truth. You know, how can you do something when you don't have any history?
Truth doesn't become relevant in the era of Trump, though.
Yeah.
You know, but I thought Terry can't read his last name asked a great question when he said, "So what happens if Israel and Iran start shooting each other?" I think that's you know, I think that's a great question.
Yeah. And I mean, the very fact that, I mean, right now there is like a saturation by the U.S. of pushing the line that there is credible evidence that there's going to inevitably be a strike in the next 48 hours. Yeah. It seems as though they're really trying to beat the drums. I mean, Iran is a far more cooler customer than this idea, and I mean, the very idea that they would strike directly at a nuclear country seems a little bit far-fetched. But again,
I was reading this morning where they were saying Iran is going to have 100 drones and all these missiles coming in. But you're right. I mean, Iran has been very comfortable using proxies. They're not comfortable about being direct targets. And so I wonder, and the U.S. through back channels has been talking to Iran. Everyone's been talking to Iran. Iran's been saying, okay, we're going to moderate and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Well, we got 100,000 troops, military scene, everything in the Mideast right now. So obviously we're preparing for something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, again, it said that the threat was imminent from Iran directly, not through a proxy, and so that I think is one of the issues. Well, I'd like to go ahead and conclude this section, this segment with another requiem, as we began the show with one, and that is for a curmudgeon who is now done with his a very long series. Larry David with Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Alan, I think we've got a video.
We've got a video. I'll just set it up as saying this was the final scene that was filmed. It's not the final scene of the actual last show, but it's the very final scene that was. And so.
All right. That's a wrap on the funniest show ever. Say something.
Larry David has treated me like a god, and all of you have. And this is the greatest experience of my career, and I love each and every one of you. I'm honored to be working with arguably the greatest sitcom writer in the last 2 centuries, and God bless all of you. And thanks for being so sweet to me.
Oh, boy.
I still have to say my favorite line of probably every season was when the short Jewish guy walked up to Larry David outside a movie theater, and Larry was humming Wagner, and he said, Wagner, they were playing Wagner when people were being marched into the crematoriums. He said, "You must be a self-loathing Jew." And Larry David says, "I hate myself, but it has nothing to do with being Jewish."
Yeah, I can't help but wonder if we are talking about his demise too soon. Larry David is not going away, whether it's Curb Your Enthusiasm or something else. He's going to be around for a while.
Yeah,
I think so. Fish, what did you think? I know you don't watch TV, but what do you think about the whole Curb Your Enthusiasm phenomenon?
I can tell you, I just read an article. I don't have any use for him, and it's totally a Jew thing. I don't like guys who come across in the way that a lot of non-Jews view Jews. I don't like a guy like him who's a smartass all the time. He says racial stuff, and he's not in a position to be saying stuff like that. And I really don't have any use for the guy. Only the little bit of things that people have sent me. He's so funny, and they'll send me a YouTube video, and I look at it and say, that shit ain't funny to me. I sent an article. There was an article in either the Post, the Times, the Atlantic, I think the Atlantic, written by somebody Jewish yesterday, and they crapped on him, and I sent it to friends of mine who think he's the funniest guy on the planet. I did agree with him, although somebody sent me one. They asked him about going to destination weddings. And Larry David and I agree 1,000%. He said he would never get on a plane to go to a wedding. And the guy asked him, well, what's your limit? And he said 150 miles if you can drive. That he and I agree on 100%. Other than that, I got no use for the guy.
Alan.
Thou the counter, Shayna, you ignorant slut. I have to say, I love the guy. I mean, he was interviewed the other morning on Morning Joe, and he said, that's not me, that person there. I'm not confrontational. He goes, that's my hero. That's the person I play that I would love to play in real life. I have to say, when I went down to Florida, where I used to go every year to visit my parents down in the Lauderdale area, there were snowbirds there. I got 12 episodes, and we watched them through the week. And my mother, being a very funny sense of humor, survivor of Auschwitz, and she just loved it. And she'd say, oh my God, he's so natural. I'd squirm. I'd be sitting in a room with my parents. Here's my elderly parents. And Larry David is coughing he's got a pubic hair stuck in his throat. And he goes to the doctor, and my mother is laughing. And I'm like, And then finally the doctor, he says, okay, Larry, he says, you got to stop for a few days what you're doing. And Larry goes, to be honest, he goes, don't do it that much. The doctor says, don't need to know the schedule. But right.
Hey, Alan, that gives me comfort to hear that, you also squirmed like watching, stuff with your parents. I felt the same way watching Gandhi with mine. So,
but I thought he was. I understand. Look, you know what? A lot of times I had to watch a second time for the show a second time because I squirmed through the first time, where he has his father-in-law has a nail, and he says, "What's with the nail there?" And he goes, "Oh," he says, "from the Passion of the Christ. Have you seen it yet?" He goes, "No, not yet." And he goes, and Larry David goes to him. He goes, "What is it with you people in Jesus Christ?" And you squirm at that, but Jewish people kind of, he's expressing things that we don't want to say publicly sometimes, but we're kind of squirming in both ways. But there were times where I definitely squirmed, and there were times where he made references, whether it was racial, sexual, or whatever, or about people with disabilities. And there was one episode where he went to the bathroom and he had been taking some medication that his flow was so quick that the water sprayed on this Jesus picture, this painting, and there were teardrops, and these people thought it was a miracle that Jesus was crying, and were trying to take it around. So, stuff where I'm going, wow, this is really making me uncomfortable, but he pushed
funny.
it.
Very funny.
I never got I couldn't watch the whole show. He did make me squirm to where I was uncomfortable. But the cool thing about the Reels thing that has come up in Facebook is that you can get like scenes. Like I can handle a single scene of Larry David, and they're pretty funny when you like. I got to see the Bruce Springsteen, just that one little part, and just bits like that. And maybe I can build up enough immunity where I can watch the reruns and see the whole thing, and not just spend the whole time going ah. And I'm not offended. I think the whole the Jesus urine tears is hilarious, but he's.
I agree with Richard Lewis, though. I think he was a brilliant comedy writer, and I thought some of the stuff was brilliant. And so, look, the shows are, some people were big fans, said, the season was whatever. And it's never 100% even, like every show is amazing. But there were, Woody Harrelson was on. There was a great episode with him. He's had some really brilliant stuff, but.
He developed Seinfeld. I mean, he made a fortune off a show about nothing.
Right.
I mean,
well, I know in his honor now that the characters are unforgettable. I mean, I know that next time I go to a sushi restaurant, I'm going to yell "Iramashwai." So.
Well, Nancy was mentioning that Cody, when they had the guy from the Survivors, and Larry is having a dinner to renew marriage vows. And his father brings his friend Sally, and so the rabbi says, "Hey, can I bring somebody who's a survivor?" And ends up from the show The Survivor. So here it is: you have Sally, this old Jewish man from the Holocaust, and you have the guy from The Survivor. And the guys from Survivors going, "No, man, humidity, it was like 98%," and the Jewish guy goes, 43 degrees below zero. And he goes, "No, man." He goes, "We had to walk around with flip-flops. Flip-flops, we didn't have no shoes." And he goes, "No, man, we didn't toilet paper, we used newspapers." And the guy finally says, "Have you ever heard of our show?" And the guy says, "Have you ever heard of our show? It's called The Holocaust." And it was such a great scene. I watched that with my parents too. They were laughing.
All right. You weren't biting your nails at that one, Alan?
No.
Okay. All right.
I have a feeling that we're going to jump, Saeed, and I wanted to get back to Eric, who asked the question: When are we going to get to the morons at the school regarding the Oxford shooting? Eric, the answer to that question is never. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay.
How come?
It's a long story. I could spend an hour on it. But it's because the attorneys got together and shut everything down and came up with the great lie about what the counselors were thinking and the way governmental immunity works in the state of Michigan. They're never going to hold these people accountable. I think that at least one of the counselors should have been charged with involuntary manslaughter, and he wasn't. But I think that they moved in very quickly, came up with a cover story, worked on governmental immunity. I think it was a travesty of justice, but I don't think they're ever going to be held accountable, and it's too bad.
Bill, how long are you going to be in Spain?
I hope Ben Johnson and the other attorneys who are involved directly in those cases can do it, but I have some serious doubts about it.
Well,
how long are you going to be in Spain?
I know,
How long
Eric.
are you going to be in Spain there, Bill?
I'm sorry?
Bill, how long are you going to be in Spain?
I'm only going to be in Spain another couple of days. We're heading to Morocco next.
Wow.
Oh, very nice. Well,
Very
if
cool.
you have time, I would love to hear that hour-long explanation. You can actually put it on Tico Taco.
I like Steve's better.
Cock, tick.
Bill, working with the teachers unions for a number of years, they can be fired, but it'll be pressure through the unions and the staff. That's how it will happen. Because I was involved in cases like that, not as an attorney, but from behind the scenes. They can be fired. Not legal, what happened, I can't, but they can be fired. Okay.
Well, they can be fired. Here's the problem. I mean, the school district is more concerned about their reputation than they are about the truth. And the school district rallies around these people. Look, I was involved in a case in Livonia where a group of special ed teachers literally were beating autistic kids, physically abusing them. And Ben Johnson and I had those cases, and the people who were involved in that, in covering it up, all got promoted. They all got promoted. It's ridiculous what goes on.
There was a parent during the hearing for the sentencing who said, I want the truth to come out in this whole matter. And even James Crumbley said the same thing. The whole truth needs to come out in this. And I think there's still a lot that needs to be aired publicly on this.
Listen, the two fellows that I represented who were school board members who said, wait a minute, let's talk about what happened in closed session. Let's talk about this. They were told, you violate the law, we're coming after you. So, you can't waive this privilege. Only the board can, and you cannot. There's little doubt in my mind that this is one of the worst cover-ups I've ever. Well, it's not one of the worst I've ever seen. But
There's a couple at MSU that's pretty bad. There's a couple of Michigan State University that are really bad.
And U of M.
It is the tradition, if you will, that when a school district has one of these things going on, the view, and I spent 16 years in total on school boards. The tradition is we've got to protect the reputation of the district. My view was, look, you'll do a better job of protecting the reputation of the district if you let the truth come out, because you'll be viewed as credible. Nobody agrees with me on that.
I think that's the instinct of institutions, Catholic Church, Penn State, Michigan State, U of M, protect. They don't care about the individuals who they
see how well
serve.
that worked for them, right, Alan?
Yeah, and it catches up. It catches up eventually, but you
Exactly
keep
right.
sweeping under the rug until someone lifts the rug, and then all hell breaks loose. So.
Yep.
Well, look, I mean, given the fact that this is the 50th anniversary of Nixon's resignation from Watergate, always remember, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. So, all right, let's go to commercial.
We could talk about that,
Right.
Saeed, but it would be wrong. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
The NFL Draft is coming to Detroit, and you can be there for free. Experience the ultimate NFL fan fest. Go to NFL.com/draft access. The NFL Draft, presented by Bud Light, April 25th through the 27th.
All right, we're gonna go.
And now,
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
hey, Bill, when you get back, you'll be back in time for the draft. You want to go down to Campus Martius and burn a draft card?
Oh. Listen, I can't tell you why I don't have my draft card, Saeed, because it was illegal.
Well, see, I was going to say I'm a day late and $1 short for that one.
Was that at Michigan State? Was that at Michigan State, Bill?
It was at Michigan State, and Steve and I worried about many of the same things in that era.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I felt terribly guilty. I drew a very high number, and 6 of my closest friends went in because
they came back. Did they all come back?
One of them did not. It was real hard because here I wanted to go celebrate. People I wanted to go celebrate were all drinking and smoking because they were so sad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wonder what's going to happen next year on the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. I think it'll be really important to see how it's commemorated. Ed, who's your schmuck of the week?
Well, it has to be the Speaker of the House, but I think I want to do something local. Michigan residents, 86% of the pollution on the beach is created by us and all the plastics we put on the beach. That's the big story today, how we're polluting our lakes, but we're doing it, by all our junk, and 86% is all plastics.
Ed, is there any way possible that we could actually blame Ohioans for this? Because, I'm all for that.
Well, I would say that we'll probably blame Canada first for all the smog they send over with the burning bushes.
Okay. I knew South Park would come into this sooner or later. Excellent. Fish.
My schmuck of the week is Kari Lake. She's really a schmuck of the season, but her flip-flop on this business with the abortion ruling is just too hilarious. She was 100% in favor of that statute from 1742 or whatever it was. And the minute the court made the holding, well, wait a minute. Maybe we need to do something about it. We want the legislator to change the law. The woman has no principles at all. We already knew that. But this, to me, when you have the words coming right out of the person's mouth, it's not like, 100 years ago where you can say, I never said that. Now everybody knows what you said because we got video and audio of it. So to me.
But Fox News wants you to take a bus to do another state.
Yeah, exactly. So she's my schmuck of the week, Kari Lake.
Well, Steve, today on CNN, they actually did a word-for-word comparison of Trump and Lake. I mean, it was DJs would be just dreaming of lining things up like that. Yeah. Barb.
I have two really good ones, and they're all local, but I am going to go with Michigan. What's the word? The Michigan Police Officers Association of America, who, despite the way the GOP loves disorder and loves beating up cops at the Capitol, endorsed Donald Trump for president. There's really very few reasons to trust cops. Now there are even less reasons to trust cops. It's depressing. But I do want to give a quick shout out to Florida resident Mike Rogers, who's running for office here in Michigan. He's running for Senate, right?
Senate.
Yeah,
yes, he is. But he lives in Florida, so he can stay in Florida.
All right. Joel.
Oh, my guy is going to be Senator Anthony Kern, the Arizona senator who was on the chamber floor speaking in tongues with a gaggle of others. This is again, we're down to the theocracy controlling everything we're doing, antithetical to democracy. This is the grand experiment again.
Joel, were you serious? I mean, somebody asked this question, Joel. Were you serious about this? He really was speaking in tongues?
It's fucking nuts. I mean, I can actually. I make a play for it. They're speaking in tongues. God, what the fuck they're saying.
Yeah, but they learned that from Kevin Copeland. You know that.
Right, but anyway, that is just it's the microcosm of where we are. Is speaking tongues on the people's house is fucking crazy. So to Arizona and Mr. Buck,
or you know what? Maybe I'll.
He's out.
All right. So we got two for Arizona. Okay, Bill.
Yeah, mine's Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the ADL, who suggested that anybody who wore a graffiti, which is a Arab headdress, was
or a scarf. It's also worn as a scarf.
Or a scarf. Yeah. It was the equivalent of wearing a swastika. The most amazing thing I think I've heard in my life. But what can I say? Talk about making sure that we spread animosity. Actually, I know a lot of Jews who wear them, but we won't even get into that.
Okay.
He's my schmuck.
All right, just one from a viewer. David Porter says that his schmuck of the week, and thank you for participating. Charlie Kirk, the GOP activist, for saying that women are bitter because they're on birth control. So, thank you.
I do want to give credit to Layla, by the way. She was the one who fed me this article. I read everything Layla sends me, and
okay.
By the way, Fishman called to say he got knocked off again, so he is
okay. No problem.
He's out of here. I told him I'd come by his office next week and see if there's some glitch there.
I say we chip in. He's stealing the internet from the office next door. I say we chip in. And
so Allan, I think you have to first start to see if you can get an update from MS-DOS.
My schmuck of the week is Ron DeSantis, who's now talking about raising money for Donald Trump. I mean, there's just no shame in these people. I mean, we've seen it with Rubio and Ted Cruz. I mean, they just get bludgeoned. And all these guys, Trump shits on all of them, and they come back and say, "May I have another?" It's
I think that's
all,
because people like
career. There's no dignity. There's no dignity left in the. I mean, when Kari Lake is talking all that shit out there, it's like there's no dignity left, and they don't care. It's all about winning.
No dignity left. Do you think they had any to start with, Alan?
Yeah. Good point.
But this is indicative, though, of Alan, of Mike Johnson, Kevin McCarthy, Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz. When they go to Mar-a-Lago, they look at Trump, they see Richard Gere. When they look at themselves in the mirror, they see Julia Roberts. So, and Fish is back. Fish has already given his schmuck. So, okay, my schmuck of the week, I actually had to update it. It was going to be animal smuggler Marius Joubert, who killed himself by getting one of his cobras to bite him as he was arrested in South Africa. He was facing 25 years in prison, and he says, "I'm not going to prison for illegally importing animals." So he got his Indo-Chinese spitting cobra to go ahead and bite him, knowing full well that there was no antivenom on hand. So taking it out and choosing the path of Cleopatra over incarceration. But my schmuck of the week really is former Harvard Law School professor, an alleged massage recipient on Epstein Island, Alan Dershowitz, who just came out and said, regarding the OJ trial, "I would have gladly represented the victims if they would have called me first, but they didn't, so I represented OJ." So there you go.
Wow, there's a man of conviction. A man of conviction.
There's a man of convictions who was able to keep his client from getting a conviction. Anyways, thank you all for being on again. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Adios in España. Enjoy your time there, as well as, are you going to Marrakesh?
We are not going to Marrakesh. We're going to, we're mainly going to spend our time in Fez.
Okay, otherwise we're gonna have Barb sing you the Marrakesh.
Oh, you're riding on the Marrakesh Express.
I will sing the song.
There you go.
Bring some spices home.
Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus.
Hotline.org.
With the last word, and hotline.org. Thank you. And with the last word, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Thanks, everybody, and have a great week.